Call of Duty Black Ops 4 is a departure from the traditional formula of the series, opting out for a sole focus on multiplayer this year. To say the change has been polarizing for some fans of the series is an understatement. Whether you're okay or disagree with the change, what's available here has become my favorite battle royale game to date, with familiar territory for long fans of zombies and multiplayer. Oddly enough, despite Treyarch coming out and saying that there isn't a single player campaign in Black Ops 4, we actually do have something sort of like it. It's called Specialist HQ, and it's a single player narrative mode that introduces the different types of classes in the multiplayer, while also giving context to the character models you play as. It's by no means a full-on campaign mode, but feels more like an extremely minute version of the Battlefield 1 vignette story structure. You play through a series of missions for each of the different types of classes that act like a training mode for them. Gameplay wise, they lack any depth, really just feeling like bare minimum challenges. Story wise, they're actually pretty cool. It structures a rough put together story with bits and pieces of each of the characters' background, leaving the player to sort of figure out how they all connect. In true Treyarch fashion, it's an Easter egg hunt of sorts to piece together how it all relates to the remaining multiplayer game modes. These cinematic vignettes don't hold back on the violence and just the realness of war either, they're gruesome and hard-hitting. Ultimately, while it's not going to replace the hole left by the missing campaign mode, it gives a bit of story to all the multiplayer modes that connects them, hinting at a larger backstory. In a way, it reminds me a lot of how Overwatch began telling a story without a real campaign mode. Perhaps like that, we'll see it fleshed out in the future. Call of Duty is focusing on solely multiplayer this year, with the three main game modes being multiplayer, zombies, and blackout. Let's tackle the traditional multiplayer first. If you played any recent Call of Duty game before, you'll be familiar with a lot of the 13 modes available. They're split into playlists consisting of core and hardcore. Core features fan favorites of the series like Team Deathmatch, Search and Destroy, and Domination. The remaining modes are hardcore versions of previous modes that raise up the difficulty by limiting features. My personal favorite continues to be Team Deathmatch, Control, and Free-for-all. While it's fun to just get into some free-for-all for some quick matches, anytime I was with my squad, we gravitated over to Control. It's a mode where each team takes turns defending and attacking the objective with a limited amount of lives. It's a ton of fun that invites players to really work together as a team to coordinate between the objectives and surviving. Just playing the traditional multiplayer also was a great way to get a feeling for the weapons in real-world use for future use in Blackout. With that said, I would have loved to see more of the chaotic modes like Gun Game return, those more obscure than the core series. We still may see these types of modes in the future, but currently at launch they were just missing. In terms of progression, multiplayer mode rewards players as they perfect the 6 default classes that start off the multiplayer. As you earn XP by playing, you'll unlock new weapons, custom classes, and more that'll essentially shape out the soldier you want to be. For those of you that don't get accustomed to the default classes at first, it can feel a bit slow in terms of the progression at first. You'll have to push your way through those default classes for a little bit before you actually start to progress. However, once you pass level 4 and begin to craft your own classes, it really does start to feel rewarding. Each new level unlocks something that ends up adding onto your soldier, chipping away at your dream soldier. Inside the multiplayer, there are 14 available maps at launch that adopt the series' famous 3-lane system that keeps the action going. Usually maps contain long but narrow pathways that forces players to either come into close combat, but also introduces the chance of long-range firefights. I found them to work well for team-based matches, but for modes like free-for-all, I'd occasionally run into the issue of spawning in front of enemies. That could easily get annoying. The Black Ops staple mode Zombies returns with 2 stories across 3 different maps, 4 if you purchase the more deluxe version of Black Ops 4. Personally, it's the multiplayer mode I tend to play the least, as I've never just been too invested into the series. The Chaos story is part of a new narrative for the series, while the second story is a continuation of the previous one. Maps across the stories feel more confined this time around, having a more linear perspective on the game mode in terms of maps rather than a wide open area like in previous Zombies modes. I was more attracted to the new Chaos storyline that has you time traveling across a sinking Titanic and a Roman Colosseum. Really wild additions like zombie tigers and giant Roman grunts make Black Ops 4 Zombies mode feel like some of the most wildest fiction in the series so far. This is also one of the most customizable zombie modes where you can completely alter the features in custom games. There's also a rush mode that feels more like a stripped down version of zombies, just getting straight into the action of surviving. Ultimately, this year's Zombies felt just as fleshed out in terms of story and Easter eggs as it normally does. Fans of the long-running game mode are sure to enjoy this one. For those that weren't into the mode before, like myself, I don't think this version will win you over entirely. The chaotic setting and narratives are amusing, but the gameplay feels more like a retreading under new settings and circumstances. Lastly, there's the new Blackout mode, the big new attraction with this new entry in the series. And what I can only describe as truly Battle Royale meets Call of Duty, Treyarch really did recreate what feels like traditional Call of Duty in this new genre. For those unfamiliar with the genre, you start a match in this giant map you drop into. Depending if you're playing solo, in duos, or in a 4-player squad, The total amount of players varies from 88 to 100 players, a major upgrade from previous multiplayer matches in Call of Duty games. Every few minutes, a circle around the map will shrink, forcing players to run into each other and dwindle down the player count until the last soldier or team is standing. To me, Blackout really shines for its gunplay and inventory system. Gunplay is the series' bread and butter, and that's no different with Blackout. Guns feel and sound great. I have yet to have a moment where I feel like a gunshot wasn't fair, whereas in PUBG, I've had moments of me screaming that a certain shot should have done a kill. As compared to Blackout, it feels more balanced and fair. Even playing on console with the controller, aiming and firing your weapons just feels good with great control. I really want to commend Treyarch for nailing the gamepad controls with the inventory system too. Like other battle royales, Blackout has different weapons, ammo, healing items, gun attachments, and even cool Easter egg equipment like an RC car. The inventory system looks a bit familiar to other battle royale games in the past. Pressing start on a gamepad looks up your guns, attachments, and pretty much everything in your inventory. It's pretty self-explanatory. What I personally found interesting with the inventory system was just how quick and easy it was to manage it with the D-pad. Pressing up on the D-pad brings up a mini menu that gives you access to your perks, healing items, and equipment. In this menu, you can quickly swap out items that are either set to one of the shoulder buttons on your controller. It can be anything from quickly switching off a Molotov with a grenade or a medkit for a band-aid. In games like this where you have to manage inventory while also not being shot at, features like this quick menu are greatly appreciated. Coming from someone that has weekly Fortnite and PUBG days with their friends on Discord, Blackout is easily one of my favorite battle royale games in recent time. Since I started playing the beta back in September, my matches in Fortnite and PUBG quickly took a hit with me just wanting to play more Blackout. There's something about the balance of fun gameplay and actual good performance across the platforms that make this a joy to play for me. Personally, I find it to be a mix of the performance of something like Fortnite with the gunplay attention to something like PUBG. Sure, if you weren't a fan of the mechanics in Call of Duty before, then you're probably not going to enjoy Blackout. It's really just Call of Duty mechanics adapted to the Battle Royale genre, but I think it works. Now, as far as the progression system goes in Blackout, it's very much cosmetic features like new models and emotes. I don't think it's anything in comparison to Fortnite just yet, but it's starting to get there. It has the minimal features so far. It's certainly something I hope gets more fleshed out in the future for longtime players. I honestly didn't expect to like this game mode that much, and the fact that I'm so hooked on it now gets me really excited for the future where this becomes a long-running series service that only continues to grow. There are some small nitpicks I have with Blackout specifically, like how vehicles don't have a boost option and how the full 100 player count isn't an option in solos. Generally though, I'm quite pleased with Blackout. It's a game mode that I can see myself playing for months after its release, as compared to the minimal playtime I usually have with previous Call of Duty Online modes after I'm done reviewing them. When playing the multiplayer or zombies mode of Black Ops 4, you're confined to much tighter spaces that ultimately mean better performance visually. View distance is good, textures load in quickly, and the actual quality of everything looks great. The different multiplayer and zombie maps take you across different types of terrains and time periods that relatively look fantastic. I personally really appreciated the saturated look of it all. Whether I was on the beach, the tundra, or in the mountains, there is always a pop of color on screen. It's something I've really come to miss in Call of Duty games since the heavier monotone war backdrops took center stage. I also appreciated the use of particle effects in the environment, such as leaves falling through the jungle or slight glows of embers coming from explosions. Performance during these game modes seemed fine across all the platforms. I get occasional pop-in at times, but the frame rate seems stable at a locked or near 60 frames per second. Resolution-wise, on the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, both versions find a middle ground of dynamic resolution that hovers in the area of 1500p. That's with the Xbox One X version hitting higher resolutions on average. On the basic PS4, it targets 1080p, though it does drop to lower resolutions, and the Xbox One takes the worst hit at around 800p. This year's Call of Duty is certainly starting to get more taxing for the console platforms. It becomes most apparent in the Battle Royale mode called Blackout. The wide open areas with the higher player count can make the PS4 and Xbox One chuck down to the mid to low 50 frames per second mark, especially when using any form of vehicle. On the other hand, PC performance is stellar in comparison to how recent PC series entries have run so far. Playing on my GTX 970 with an i7 4790K, I was able to hit a steady 60 FPS at 1080p with high settings. While Black Ops 4 is taxing on the lower end consoles, it still ends up being one of the best performing Battle Royale games across consoles and PC. Now of course there are plenty of examples of low draw distance and pop-in throughout the map, but it still finds a way to balance out performance, features, and fun quite reasonably. There's some wild exceptions here, like a bug I ran into the multiplayer mode in my 4 days of playing the game, but those bugs are rare finds rather than common occurrences.
La monnaie sûre! We are ready! Allez, here it is. I will put you out of your misery, huh?
Yeah, fucker. I never read the the Jungle Book the same way again.
We need to explore every inch of this place.
You!
I don't want to spend 1 minute longer.
You think this is fun? Why don't you come down here and have a go? Huh? Get your hands all covered in blood and dung!
The Call of Duty series has strived for authenticity with its guns, well, at least under realistic weaponry. That attention to detail is prominent throughout the sound of weapons and explosions. Weapons are punchy and powerful. Whether you're the one shooting or the one getting shot at, you'll definitely feel the ump of the gunfire. Music selection was pretty good too. I particularly enjoyed the main menu music in the multiplayer section. The combination of heavy rock with slow piano tunes mixed well and often left me just listening to the mix instead of hitting deploy. Performances for characters were hit or miss for me though. I enjoyed the performances of the cast throughout the Specialist HQ sequences, but not too much during the zombie sections. It wasn't too much on the performances themselves, but rather how they were designed with the zombies mode in mind. They constantly spoke over each other and basically just sounded like gibberish to me. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 feels like 3 big games in one. One that, despite being solely focused on multiplayer this year, packs in a lot of content into them that's sure to have something for most players just wanting to play online. The Specialist HQ mode is an appreciated taste of something that feels like a campaign mode, but isn't entirely a substitute either. However, what is here doesn't feel like it's lacking in quality or in content. If you're mad or upset by the lack of single-player campaign, then that's your prerogative and I recommend you just don't buy the game. After all, it's best to show the company feedback with your wallets. Personally, I don't think the lack of single-player hurts the rest of the package though. It's different for sure, but to say it's no longer fun or worth playing or buying would be lying on my part. As a multiplayer package, Black Ops 4 is one of my favorite online games at the moment, something I'm sure a lot of you will be shocked to hear, as am I. I give Call of Duty Black Ops 4 a 9 out of 10. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share the video with your friends. It helps more people find out about my videos, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you all very much for watching, hope you guys have a great day, and keep on gaming.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
We're on here. What the fuck? Holy shit!